on Jacob's Quest, and today I just finished watching Moonknight episode 3, and obviously full spoiler review here. Episode 3, okay, so we're in Egypt, and basically we're just trying to get to the tomb of Amet, I think, right? Before Arthur Harrow can. I'm starting to remember these characters' names. And essentially what's going on here is that we go through a series of different chases while we're trying to question people, and I think something's happening here that's starting to annoy me a little bit, and it happens several times in this episode. Is Mark Spector will be in the middle of trying to interrogate somebody, or even in the middle of a full-on fight. He'll be in the Moonknight armor towards the end and fighting people. And Stephen Grant, the Stephen Grant personality, will start like butting in and be like, "Give me the body, give me the body. Let me take over. We don't need to interrogate these people. We don't need to fight these people." And then Mark Spector comes back a few seconds later, and then like, "Oh, we're in a different location," or "Oh, we got stabbed, so we quickly got the body back," or something. I don't know. I think my thing is, I get what they're doing. It's kind of the inverse of the first episode, where it was Stephen Grant, and then he'd wake up and like, oh, all this violence had happened. But I think I just find it a little bit more annoying this time, because it feels like the rhythm, the pacing of the show is literally being interrupted by this other personality coming in and not wanting to fight. And I get it, right? Like, that's Stephen Grant's personality. Like, he's kind of like the nerdy character. He doesn't want to fight anybody, he doesn't want to hurt anybody. But honestly, I as the viewer, I'm sitting here going like, okay, but we're on a mission. Can we, I guess my thing is that, like, I would like a decent amount of action in this superhero show, right? Like, he's got the cool armor, he's, and traditionally, again, not that I've really read the comics, but traditionally this is a little bit more of a violent character, and so it does feel like that keeps on getting interrupted. However, I will say this, we do get the hint, or I guess just direct confirmation that we are going to be seeing a third personality in this show, because even Mark Spector blacks out while he's doing the interrogation, and he wakes up and the people he was interrogating have been killed, or at least one of them has been killed, and then both Mark and Steven are like, that wasn't me, I didn't do that. So we're probably going to be introduced to a third character either next episode or the episode after that, and then maybe we'll even get the hint that, like, oh yeah, there's like a lot more personalities in here. So I know that the show is taking liberties with these personalities, right? Like, they're definitely changing some stuff up. So we'll see how this goes. I don't know the name of who this new personality is going to be, but maybe this is going to be the violent one. Because this show is doing a weird thing where they will occasionally show a lot of blood. Like these people got stabbed and there's blood all over the knife, and there's, like, they'll show some blood. But then other times, like towards the fight at the end, when he's in the Moonknight armor and he's throwing these like, he's throwing the little Moonknight stabby, what would you call them? He's throwing his little circular discs, I guess, at people, and they're stabbing people and they're getting people, but they don't show any blood then, so it's kind of strange how, like, 1 second it's like, oh yeah, we're willing to show like real blood and gore and all this stuff, and then the rest of the time they're like, no, this is like PG violence, like we'll show people get hit with a thing, you'll hear the audio go, and then they fall down, but you don't actually see any blood on these people. So it's kind of weird how the show's like going back and forth between that. I don't know if they're trying desperately to stay within some kind of rating, and so the people who were making the show were like just trying to get away with what they could, but it's only a very little bit every once in a while. but most of the time they can't show that much blood. So I don't know, just an interesting thing I noticed. I was like, this is kind of weird, right? Like his main weaponry is like, you know, stabbing people, you know, and throwing these things that stab people. And so it's kind of strange to be like, yeah, but there's no blood most of the time, but every once in a while there's going to be a lot of blood. Very weird. Very, I don't know. The censorship board has always been like a weird thing with stuff like that, so I'm sure that's all it is. They had to stay within a certain thing for some reason. I don't know. But yeah, anyways, the plot of the actual episode. So they're trying to get to the tomb first, but Arthur Harrow is, you know, he's got the scarab, so they're definitely gonna, I think they even find it and they start digging. And so his plan eventually becomes like, okay, we are going to hold a court in front of all of these other gods and all of their avatars, right? So they get summoned inside this pyramid, and they're all talking about like, and I don't remember all the gods' names, but it's all the different Egyptian gods, and they all have like their human avatar forms, and basically he's just trying to get this you know, Ethan Hawke's character basically just like, hey, judge him, you know, imprison him because he's trying to awaken this other god that, you know, we imprisoned a long time ago. And I will say this scene, while it was nice to finally get some more information about like what the larger picture is here, like, okay, so there are a bunch of other Egyptian gods, and they have, for some whatever reason, they've decided to step away from interfering in mankind. And we actually see this play out where it's like, we don't use our powers and change things, and we can't let people know about us. Now, why exactly they've decided that, I don't know. Maybe I need to watch the scene again, but I was like, but why though? You know, because I think about like Thor and Asgard, and those were all, you know, the humans considered those gods, but those were like, you know, they're like an alien species, but they're like on the god level, you know. Clearly they can do crazy things. They have magic of their own, right? So like, why these Egyptian gods are like, no, we can't do anything ever. But like, I don't know. I'm interested to know like what exactly is the logic behind this, because obviously, you know, and this is something that I've tweeted about a lot. I need like a hierarchy chart in Marvel, because we've just introduced the Eternals, and then the Celestials, who, you know, the Celestials supposedly created the entire universe and all living beings and all that, right? So I'm like, okay, so did the Celestials create these Egyptian gods then? Because how does that work? You know, and then with Stephen Strange, you have like different, the Dark Dimension and whatever his name is, Dormammu, whatever. You know, so I have a lot of questions about like, what the hell is happening with the gods, and then the Celestials, and then the Eternals, and then the Asgardians. You know, it seems to all be real to different degrees, and you know, like, what's the power structure? Who created who's living where? You know, I don't know. My other criticism about this whole scene is that, like, you know, and this had, I can only imagine this was like a budgetary thing, but like, we don't see any of the other gods. You know, we see their human avatars, and you know, we see one of them use a little bit of like their magic, right, like their powers, right? It would have been nice to see the gods like standing behind them, like the CGI gods, like kind of in the shadows, just like how Khonshu is. Oh, you know, we always see Khonshu in the background, right? Like with giant skeleton bird face, right? So it would have been cool to see all the other gods like standing back there. That would have been really interesting, but then they didn't do that, and I was kind of disappointed, because I'm like, it must have been a budgetary thing where they're like, no, we're just gonna have the human people stand there. Which is fine, I guess, but it definitely would have, I think, added to the scene for me, because, you know, I was sitting there saying like, okay, so you're inside a pyramid, and you're holding this court of the gods and judgment and all that. Kind of would have been cool to actually see the gods. But yeah, we later get this other fight scene where they're trying to, like, you know, they were going after this sarcophagus, but it wasn't like her tomb or something. I don't know. They were going after something about the constellations in the night sky. Anyway, so we have this extended fight sequence, and like I said, not a whole lot of blood. It had a lot of cool elements to it, and I actually did like that he temporarily turned back into Mr. Knight, and he's like, oh no, I'm still bad at this, and then he turns back. So that was kind of cool. And then at the very end, the gods warned Khonshu, like, don't mess with the sky again, because that's how he got the gods' attention, was by like raising the moon. And this I think was actually the coolest part of the episode, is he actually is able to rewind the night sky back to like the way it was 2,000 years ago to get the correct constellations to where they need to go. And apparently, like, everyone can just see this. It's not just like an illusion that Khonshu's conjuring for them. But like, everyone is literally seeing the night sky getting rewound, which is pretty cool. But then of course the other gods do their spell, and now Khonshu is trapped inside of a statue. And Mark Spector, you know, if he was dead when Khonshu brought him back, I have to imagine that he is now back to being just a dead corpse, right? Because Khonshu's the only thing that's keeping him alive, I think. And yeah, that's basically how this ends. Is like, it seems like it's over for Khonshu, but of course, you know, he's gonna escape somehow. So we'll see how this all plays out. But yeah, I have to imagine one of the other gods, he did kind of he was friends with one of the gods in there, so I have to imagine that she's gonna come back and smash the statue and free Khonshu again, or something to that effect. But in any case, you know, I'm fine with where the show is right now, but there are still, you know, I know that they're not making any Marvel connections or any kind of, like, you know, references to a whole bunch of other Marvel stuff. But I will say this, I am starting, you know, here on episode 3, I'm starting to notice that without those things, you know, having a Marvel property not have any of the usual, like, oh, we're gonna have Easter eggs to other Marvel stuff and we're gonna reference a bunch of Marvel stuff. Without those things, it does feel like something's missing a little bit. So that is, I don't know, it's a little interesting, you know. It does feel like there's supposed to be more that I'm breaking down, and there's supposed to be more that I'm like looking at and trying to find and figure out, and but honestly, there's just not at this moment, you know. Like, everything the show's given us so far is like at face value, and there's not a lot to, like, you know, sit here and ponder about, you know. Pretty much everything, they're just slowly answering all our questions, and there's not a lot of other things to go into. And the lack of the sometimes lack of violence, I think, is strange, you know. And I'm not sitting here being like, I want there to be blood everywhere. No, I'm just saying that, like, it's very noticeable when the show is willing to have blood in it, and then they're like, whoa, look at that was crazy, he just killed that guy. And then all the other times when he's fighting and supposedly killing people, no blood at all. Very, you know, I don't know how you would describe this, I guess safe for family violence, I guess, which is, I don't know, it's kind of a weird phrase. Anyways, yeah, I don't know, I'm fine with the show so far. It's fine. It still feels like it's building up, and I'm kind of waiting on, like, I don't know, I'm waiting on some kind of reveal or twist or something surprising really to happen, because as cool as it is to watch what is actually, you know, unfolding here, it does feel like I'm not getting the same thing as like Loki or WandaVision, you know. Like, when we were watching those shows every single week, it was like, what is happening, what is going on, what's, you know, what does this mean, what does that mean, you know. We're like trying to, all the implications, not just to the show itself, but like to the larger universe. And it feels like this show's just not really giving us that, you know. Like, I'm not sitting here like wondering like, well, oh my god, but if they did that, that means that, you know. And I'm just sitting here like, okay, we'll see what happens next episode. I don't know. It just feels like the show is missing a little something. So I don't know. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with the show, but it's definitely not giving me the same, I don't know how you'd say it, like a cliffhanger kind of, every episode of Loki was like, oh my god, something crazy just happened at the end, and now I can't wait to see what happens next, because this I don't know, every episode was like a big event, whereas right here on episode 3, I'm like, okay, some cool stuff happened, some strange choices happened, it's fine. So I don't know. We'll see next episode. Maybe the show picks up, because all of this stuff supposedly leaked, and I think episode 4 is the one that a lot of people out there who've like delved into the leaks are like, oh, this is the crazy one. I'm like, okay. I hope it is, because like I'm fine with it so far, but it hasn't like, it's not blowing me away. I'm not going like, oh my god, Moonknight. It's like, it's fine. It's good. Whatever. Anyways, all right. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll see you guys next time.